An article from the second one about Ma'amad Isha, an article that Rabbi Gilad wrote. And finally, I have some cards. If you wanted to get on the mailing list, you can fill them out. Please continue.
Product placement. Another question?
I think it'd be nice if the only problems you have to deal with is between the modern Orthodox and the Philonim. I think that I think there's also a great divide within, you mentioned, you touched upon Haredim, and there seem to be some people who want to pull themselves completely away from the rest of society, and their behavior is such that as a religious Jew, sometimes I'm ashamed. If I was a Philoni, I would have no reason to want to be religious based on how these people are. So I don't know how it would influence this situation.
No, obviously it's a big Chilul Hashem, but we have to be very careful not to generalize all the Charedim, make a chalala, all the generalize, all the Charedim altogether. And I think there is a very positive process that started in the last few years within the Haredi world, and people don't speak about it, and Tov, so don't speak about it. It's very good because otherwise it will stop it. More and more Haredim are going to the army right now. We have this Shachar, Shavut Haredim. Thousands of Haredim are going to the army. Thousands of Haredim are studying in universities or colleges, Miktsua, starting to work. And so there is a beginning of opening gates within the Haredi world, coming to the mainstream of the society, and stick to, they're still Haredim, and that's okay. No one wants to change them, but just to take part within the mainstream of Israeli society. And this kind of actions obviously bring a lot of damage, as you say, to both sides. On one side is a Chilul Hashem, and alienate many Jews from what is Yahadut about. And the other side, the reaction of the Chiloni world that generalize all the Haredim and develop this kind of hatred is bring to the Haredim to close the gates as well. And therefore, again, we have to raise this voice that will be in between, that will say, okay, there are some extreme Michiganers, but this is not Yahadut and this is not Haredim. Haredi world, we have to know how to deal with it in a very tough way, how to stop it, but not to give them that they will build the agenda, the general agenda of the media, of the public in Israel.
I have a similar question based on, I don't know the answer to, so it has to do with the issue of church and state, right? And whether it would be better, and I think it's impossible now to sort of like put the genie back in the bottle, that there is a real big marriage between church and state in Israel. And then I think of like the Church of England, right? So there's a theoretical marriage in England between the state and the church, but it doesn't manifest itself in day-to-day life. And the thing I don't know the answer to is, I'm wondering on an Israeli passport if it says what your religion is, because I don't know the answer to that question.
Yes. It was an initiative to try to stop it, to change it. It will not be written. It is written Yehudi. And I must say, for me, although I really believe that we have to try to a little bit Halakhic these two systems, to make more distance between the two, between religion and state. But I don't think that we can really separate it. I don't think it's the right thing to do, because in my eyes, as a Zioni, as a believer Jew, the idea that we have a Jewish state is very important. And just for example, Chok HaShvut, the law of return, that every Jew all over the world can just step in the state and decide tomorrow to be a citizen and become a citizen. For me, it's a great idea. Mainly after the Shoah, there is a place that this is a home for all the Jewish people. So if we will separate between church and state, it means that there's no law of return anymore. You ignore so although there are problems of discrimination against Arabs, etc., and I feel ashamed about it, I think we have to change it. Not legally. Legally, there is no any discrimination. They have all the rights, etc. But practically, you can see if you'll visit in Kibbutz Levi and we'll visit in Turan, a Arabic village next to us, you can see the differences in the standard of living, and there is I feel very bad about it, not just as a Democrat but as a Jewish as well. I think it's bad. I can try to understand and what are the reasons, and there are many reasons. I can explain why it happened, but I will not justify. I think it's bad. So we have to try the way to find the way how to make more distance between the two systems, and that it will be less coercion, and the people will not feel intimidated and threatened by Torah. Just for example, the question of marriages and divorce in Israel. I think maybe, and this is a minority opinion within the religious communities, that maybe we have to think of, I'm not the first that said it, Rav Bakshi Doron said it about 15 years ago. Maybe we have to find a way to have a civil marriage in Israel, 2 tracks of civil marriage and religious marriage, and that we will not enforce everyone that we should go to religious marriage. You have to find a way how to do it in the right way, that it will not create mamzerim. That if you started the Jewish track, we have to divorce in the Jewish track as well. And if you are doing the civil one, you have to find a way that it will not be kiddushin. Validity of Kiddushin al pi halakha, and then you don't have to have divorce. Although I know the opinion of Rav Henkin, but there is ways that I think we can solve the problem. So this is a way but this is a new thought. Most of the team don't disagree with me, and I think maybe we have to think about it just in order to not to feel to give the feeling to people that they are enforcing and intimidated by halakha, by Torah. I think more and more people will be attracted to Yadut without this coercion.
Related to what you said, you mentioned before a second track of Rabbanut that's maybe very early stage. But I think, again, from the viewing from this side of the world, I think one of the most dysfunctional aspects of religious life in Israel seems to be the Rabbanut. So, to the extent there is a movement, within a Dati world for some other approach, is the focus on content, on style and attitude? What is the primary goal of that?
Of what?
Of having an alternative track of Rabbanut?
First of all, I have to say it should be Rabbanut that will feel responsible for the whole state of Medina Israel. I think the approach of the Rabbanut today, because it's mainly appointed and influenced by the Haredi world, most of them, maybe they will not say it in these words, but in my eyes, obviously I'm not objective, I'm not trying to be, they see themselves as a Rabbanim for the religious people. And they see basically Am Yisrael as a Haredi, maybe the Dati, the Shomrei Shabbat as well, not always, include me. But therefore, they don't think about the general responsibilities that they have for the whole state of Israel, all the Jews, at least in Medinat Israel. And this should be the main difference between this kind of new Rabbanuts. And all the rest of the thing will be as a result of this approach. Take responsibility for the state, for all the people in the state, and therefore it will influence the ways that we are doing marriage and the way of the Batei Dinim, and the way you deal with questions of agunot, of fiat get, of all these kind of issues, and obviously the issue of Giyur and other things as well, and moral issues as well. When there is a moral problem, why we don't hear the voice of Rabbanim about moral issues within Medinat Israel? Because Rabbanut is just Shabbat and Kashrut. This is a distortion. This is not Yadut. Yadut is obviously, first of all, tzedek and tzedakah and all the other things. So, and I think today there is more openness to this kind of approach of Yadut, and therefore the time actually had come to this kind of Rabbanut of Yadut in Israel.
The only time we ever hear about Chardal is in the army. Why is that? How do we make a connection to the people who consider themselves Hardal. You know, I mean, it seems like a community that helps bridge that other gap instead of to this direction, the other direction. Why is it we only hear about Hardal when we're talking about the army? Where are they? You know, where are they?
No, I don't think it's related necessarily to the army. I disagree. I think Haredi Leumi, there are people that really believe that basically the differences will be regarding general culture, about going to university, about involving in Western culture in general, about position of women, about yachas le'acher, le'goy, to non-Jews. So it's a set of values that basically adapt the mainstream of the Haredi world, except the fact that we are Zionists, we go to the army and we support the Medinat Israel, etc. But in a way, I really find that it's not, we're not in the same track. Although we wear different, very similar kippot, but Rav Levanon that says that we should prefer to stand in front of Kitat Yorim. How do you say Kitat Yorim?
Firing squad.
Firing squad. Not to listen to Shirat Nashim, to singing of women. For me, it's not. I really think we are not in the same religion. I don't know. It's the same Torah, the same halacha. So although we consider to be the same tzionut datit or religious Zionism, it's completely different. So it's not just regarding the army. And I think on the other end, just to try to understand it and to explain it, I think people feel so threatened by the Western culture and by the Metiranot,
Materialism.
No, not materialism. Permissiveness. Permissiveness. And all the questions of the pornography all around, in internet, in other places, in media, etc. And therefore, maybe the Haredi was right. We have to go back to our ghettos just to close ourselves. And I think I can understand it. It's much more dangerous to do this in an open way in the world. Just for example, in my yeshiva, when you think people, when you educate people that you have to ask questions and you have to think, you just can hope that you'll have the answers that you want. And there is a price that you pay. But because I believe in free choice, I believe that Hashem gave us our brain and our thoughts, to think, to use it. We cannot just לעבוד את Hashem in our bodies and not in our brain, and therefore this is a dangerous way, but to live is dangerous, and therefore I think this is a real emunah. You have to know the alternatives, you have to ask questions, you have to think, and then we have to choose the right choice. But there are people that are afraid, and therefore they just don't think or try to prevent as much as you can temptations and experiences for outside the Torah world and the Zionist world. And therefore they feel, because they feel intimidated, both sides, as I said, feel intimidated and threatened by the other side, they are going to close themselves in this multicultural system or societies that we develop in Israel, as here.
Okay, I think I'm going to take moderator's privilege. So first of all, I want to follow Rabbi Singer doing product placement and just tell everyone that Sunday night we're going to have journalist Uriel Heilman here talking specifically about the Beit Shemesh usage and the broader issues of the splits in Israeli society. Sunday night here, 8:15 also?
7:30.
7:30. Okay, 7:30 here Sunday night. I hope that many of you will be back for that conversation. So I wanted to ask a last question, which I think Rabbi Sendor mentioned earlier that you're the son-in-law of Rabbi Meir. And part of the conversation that takes place a lot in America about modern orthodoxy is a sort of insecurity about how one relates to the past. Modern orthodoxy in large measure roots itself exclusively in the legacy of Rabbi Soloveitchik. We can talk about whether that's a good thing or not. And that creates a certain paralysis because, right, as opposed to moving confidently into the future, is saying this is the natural continuation of the past. I was wondering how you would situate yourself, not just if you set up a program for the future, and to some degree situated yourself in the present, but how do you see yourself in the things you advocate for as emerging? Do you see this as a necessary revolution taking place because of the impact of the West and the existence of the state? Or do you see the vision you're advocating as the natural continuation of the past of Judaism? Do you see it rooted specifically in particular figures like Rav Amital and earlier figures in the state? Right? Where do you see yourself, relative to the past, and where do you draw your inspiration from in that regard?
I think the most meaningful change in Jewish society, in the Jewish people actually, the last 2,000 years maybe, was the two main events that happened in the last 200 years. One is secularism, and the second is the Tzionut. I think the Tzionut, Zionism, and secularism are the two main changes that happened within Jewish society. And basically, I think that both of them affected the Yahadut in a way that we cannot still measure. I think the one that started to deal with these two issues, in my eyes, in the largest way, was Rav Kook. But obviously he passed away more than 75 years ago, before the establishment of the State of Israel. And I think having a Medina is a great challenge and a great change within Jewish history, and within the development of not just the Jewish history, but Yahadut as well. And we are still in the beginning of the challenge, how to deal with having Medina, at the same time, how to deal with building Yahadut after the Shoah. I think we didn't start yet to deal from the theological point of view with what is the Shoah about, and what is the relation between Shoah and Medina, and Western culture, and modernism and postmodernism. All these challenges, I think, bring us to a new era that in a way we cannot just say, it wouldn't be honest to say that we just continue and just because I really think that reality is so challenging and so different that we have to try to find our own way, basically based on the past and the ways that they paved for us. In my eyes, I'm very, very influenced by Rav Kook. I think that he misunderstood by many of his students. I think he started a way to enlarge our horizons of what is Yahadut about, what is Torah about, and we just have to take it to our time, and in a way, I really believe that the challenges that we have to deal with are so great, and we have to do it together. We have to go out of our segments. We have to go out of the box and to think together with people from different methods and different segments, how to take Yahadut to make it relevant to the next generation. Because in my eyes, one of the greatness of Yahadut is when, just for example, I always take two figures that in my eyes, personally, are the greatest from some extent, the Rambam and Rav Kook. How the Rambam took the Philosophia Yvanit, the Greek philosophy, and he dealt with it, and he not just b'diavad, he saw it as something that can develop Yahadut, how we built Moreh Nevuchim, how we really believe that this is a way that Hashem speaks to us through history. So in a way, the challenge that we have in our days are not less in importance than it was in his days. How to take it and to develop Yahadut in these directions, this is one of the main challenges. So I cannot define myself exactly as a Talmid of someone specifically. I got a lot from Rabbi Mital, his Mori Rabbi, but I really think Rabbi Mital always says, I do not want that you will be to this Talmidim Amitalim Ktanim. אני לא צריך Amitalim Ktanim. I don't need the small Amitas. You have to be what you are. And there is a famous Hasidic story that says the Hasidim came to the Rebbe and said, why you changed of what your father did? You're supposed to continue him. So he said, I continue exactly what he did. He changed from his father, and I'm changing from my father. Because the challenges are all the time new challenges.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.